Hello, my name's Ian Simpson and today's 1 minute high performance tip is entitled Marginal Gains. I should start off by apologizing. This 1 minute video is going to be slightly longer than 1 minute because of the content, but I think it warrants the extra time. Marginal gains, as pioneered by Team Sky cycling team, who have won 5 out of the last 6 Tour de France races. It actually comes from the Japanese word kaizen, which means continuous improvement, incremental gains in efficiency and quality. And what Team Sky have done is take it a stage further. The idea being that marginal gains lead to small step improvements. You compound these small steps and that leads to significant improvement over a period of time. So I'll run through just some of these marginal gains that Team Sky employ. And it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or a sports team or an entrepreneur, you have your own business, you can take the points that I make and apply them to your own situation quite effectively. They cross over. So let's kick off with it then. There are many, but I won't go through them all. So let's start off with the uniforms. When you're on a 3-week cycling tour like the Tour de France, every day you have to wash uniforms. Now, up until recently, all the uniforms were going in 1 or 2 machines on the bus, the team bus, and all being washed together, everybody's uniforms being washed together. And then what Team Sky realized was that a lot of these racers were crashing and they had a lot of road rash, or they had saddle sores with open wounds. And this infected flesh, in fact, was on the material of the clothes and being transferred from one rider to another. So very simply, all they did was buy extra washing machines. So every rider almost had his own washing machine, and only one player's uniform was washed in one washing machine at any one time. And that made a massive difference and resulted in no transfer of infection from one rider to another. That's one example. Sleeping patterns, monitoring sleeping patterns, improving sleeping patterns is really important with cyclists taking their own pillows and futons so they feel comfortable and they can have as good a night's sleep as possible. Employing a lot of sports science in the way of video analysis and calculations as to how much power wattage is required for a rider on a particular climb, how to manage that power output with the other team members, rehydration, how much drinking is going to be required throughout that stage, and at certain stages, breaking it down at certain stages in the race, how much drinking is going to be required. Color coding the bottles with sports drinks with a blue top on them, and water with a white top on them. Going down to that amount of detail and then calculating it all on the sports science computer, and then putting it into logistical action on the road. A good example of that was recently when Chris Froome went off on an 80-kilometer break. And they had planned that he would possibly go for that, but they knew the logistics of that, of sustaining that power output for that amount of period of time was going to be extremely difficult. But they calculated it down to the minute detail, and they had dozens and dozens of people out on the road giving him the water that he required at certain points in the ride to rehydrate, to keep his energy levels up, to keep his nutrition up with the gels and the bars that they gave him, so that he could sustain that 80-kilometer break and win one of the greatest stages of all time. But that didn't come down to just pure guts and luck. There was a lot of sports science and planning that went into that breakaway win. And a lot of that came down to marginal gains and thinking in detail about it. So nutrition is another thing. I mean, they have their own rolling kitchen that they take around Europe with them for the races. They have their own chefs, so they know that all the food is fresh. There's going to be no food poisoning. All the caloric intake and is all calculated down to the most minute detail for the following day's race. They don't want too much food, they don't want too little food. It's all got to be calculated. Training before the race, training during the race, training on rest days, and particularly recovery. Straight after the race, they worked out that the best way to recover was to get on the roller as quickly as possible after the race had finished, before they did race interviews, and then after that back to the hotel and ice baths and massages and getting the nutrition in. All this is finally worked out, part of the Marginal Gains program. Washing their hands. They had a surgeon come in to teach them how to wash their hands properly so that they wouldn't get infections and pass infections on to other players. So again, a very minute detail. Moving on to working closely with the bike teams, the bike manufacturers, the helmet manufacturers, so that they could reduce the weight of the bike and the venting of the helmets, the aerodynamics of both. The bus that they actually travel around in, called the Death Star bus, which has absolutely everything in it that a rider would require as preparation before the race and for recovery after the race, keeping the riders in the most comfortable condition as possible, ready for the following day. Using psychology to build that winning instinct. And the list goes on of all these marginal gains that Team Sky have employed that eventually, when you compound them, lead to significant improvement. And nobody can doubt the fact that they have had significant improvement and incredible success over the past 5 to 8 years as a cycling team. There's no reason that we as business entrepreneurs or athletes, team owners, business owners, can't do the same thing in what we do. So what I want you to do is think about your team, your players, whatever they are, your business, and what marginal gains could you employ in your business with your athletes and staff to create significant improvement.